I still remember the day I decided to turn my passion into a business. It was a typical summer morning in my hometown, with the sun shining brightly and a gentle breeze that carried the sweet scent of blooming flowers. I had always been fascinated by the way technology could change people's lives, and I spent most of my free time reading about innovation and entrepreneurship. My friends and family would often tease me, saying that I was wasting my time with crazy ideas that would never amount to anything. But I didn't let their skepticism discourage me. Instead, I used it as fuel to drive my determination. As I sat in my small bedroom, surrounded by piles of books and notes, I began to brainstorm ideas for my startup. I wanted to create something that would make a real difference in people's lives, something that would disrupt the status quo and bring about positive change. Hours turned into days, and days turned into weeks as I worked tirelessly to refine my concept. I spent countless nights researching, designing, and testing, often going without sleep or proper meals. But I didn't care. I was driven by a vision of a better future. Finally, after months of hard work, I had a solid plan in place. I would start small, with an initial investment of just $100. It wasn't much, but I was convinced that it was enough to get my business off the ground. I set up a makeshift office in my garage with an old desk, a chair, and a computer that I had bought from a thrift store. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and it was the starting point of my journey. As I looked around my humble setup, I felt a sense of pride and excitement. I knew that I had a long way to go, but I was ready for the challenge. I was ready to put in the hard work, to face the obstacles, and to prove to myself and to others that my idea was worth fighting for. Little did I know, the first wave of skepticism and ridicule was just around the corner, waiting to test my resolve and push me to my limits. I still remember the day I decided to share my business idea with others, after investing just $100 to get it off the ground. I was nervous but excited, hoping that my friends and family would be supportive and encourage me to move forward. As I began to share my vision with them, I was met with a mix of reactions. Some were thrilled and offered words of encouragement, while others laughed in my face, telling me I was crazy to think I could make it work. I recall meeting my friends at a local coffee shop, where I poured my heart out to them, explaining my idea and how I planned to execute it. One of my closest friends, Sarah, was beaming with excitement, telling me that she believed in me and my abilities, and that she was confident I could make it happen. On the other hand, my other friend, Alex, was skeptical, raising concerns about the feasibility of my idea and the potential risks involved. He told me that I was being naive and that I should reconsider my decision to start the business. Despite the mixed reactions, I was determined to push forward. I knew that I needed to find people who believed in my idea and were willing to support me, so I started attending networking events and meeting with potential investors. One of the first meetings I had was with a group of investors at a conference room in a sleek, modern office building. As I walked in, I was intimidated by the formal atmosphere and the suited individuals sitting across from me. But as I began to pitch my idea, I could see the skepticism in their eyes, and I knew I had to convince them that my business was worth investing in. The initial feedback I received from these interactions was invaluable. I learned that I needed to be resilient and open to feedback, both positive and negative. I realized that not everyone would understand or believe in my vision, and that was okay. What was important was that I had a support network of people who did believe in me, and that I was willing to learn and adapt to the challenges that lay ahead. As I left the meeting with the potential investors, I felt a sense of determination and purpose. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but I was ready to face the challenges head-on. I was ready to prove to myself and to others that my $100 startup was worth something, that it had the potential to grow and succeed. And as I walked out of the office building, I couldn't help but wonder what the future held, and whether I would be able to find the right investors and build a team that believed in my startup's vision. I still remember the sense of validation I felt when I finally decided to take the leap and start building my team. It was as if the initial skepticism from others had fueled my determination to prove them wrong. My small $100 startup, which many had ridiculed, was now on its way to becoming something real. I had to find the right people who believed in my vision, people who would work tirelessly to help me achieve my goals. The first few recruits were a mixed bag. There was Alex, a young and ambitious developer with a talent for innovative solutions. Maya, a meticulous designer who brought an artistic touch to our product. and Jack, a seasoned marketer who knew how to make our brand shine. Each of them came from different walks of life, but they shared one common trait: a willingness to take risks and challenge the status quo. As we set up our office, a small but vibrant space in a bustling part of town, I could feel the energy building. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and the sound of keyboards clacking away was music to my ears. This was it. This was where the magic would happen. Developing our initial product was a roller coaster ride of emotions. There were times when we thought we were on the brink of something revolutionary, only to be faced with a setback that would send us back to the drawing board. But we persevered, driven by our collective passion and the belief that we were creating something special. However, as with any team, challenges began to arise. Egos clashed, and differences in opinion threatened to derail our progress. There were times when it seemed like we were more focused on proving each other wrong than working towards a common goal. But I knew that these hurdles were not only inevitable, but also necessary. They forced us to confront our weaknesses, to learn from our mistakes, and to grow both as individuals and as a team. Through long nights, heated discussions, and moments of pure frustration, we slowly began to gel. We learned to respect each other's strengths and weaknesses, to communicate effectively, and to trust in the process. And as we did, something remarkable happened. Our product started to take shape, and it was better than any of us could have imagined. But just as we thought we were hitting our stride, our first significant hurdles emerged. The market was tougher than we anticipated, and competitors were catching on. There were doubts about our scalability, our pricing strategy, and whether we had what it took to make it in the long run. It was as if the universe was putting our resolve to the test, challenging us to prove that we were more than just a flash in the pan. As I looked around the office, seeing the determination etched on the faces of my team members, I knew that we were in for the fight of our lives. The question was, would our morale hold up against the impending storms, or would we crumble under the pressure? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: we were ready to face whatever came next together. I still remember the early days of my startup like they were yesterday. We had finally assembled a talented team and launched our product, full of hope and anticipation. But, as it often does, reality soon set in, and we began to encounter our first hurdles. It wasn't easy, and there were times when it felt like the whole world was laughing at my $100 startup, questioning how it could ever amount to anything. The operational challenges we faced were numerous. From managing a lean team to dealing with the unexpected setbacks that seemed to pop up at every turn, it was a steep learning curve. There were days when our servers crashed, and our website was down for hours, losing us potential customers and revenue. Other times, our marketing strategies fell flat, leaving us wondering if we had misjudged our target audience entirely. Despite these setbacks, we persevered. We learned from our failures, analyzing what went wrong and how we could improve. We also celebrated our successes, no matter how small they seemed, because they reminded us that we were on the right path. This balance between acknowledging failures and embracing successes taught us the value of adaptability, resilience, and a growth mindset. We began to see that every challenge was an opportunity to learn and grow, not just as a company, but as individuals. One of the most significant lessons we learned during this period was the importance of feedback. Early on, we were so caught up in our vision that we sometimes neglected to listen to what our customers were telling us. But as we started to pay closer attention to their needs and concerns, we began to adjust our strategies accordingly. This wasn't always easy. It meant admitting when we were wrong and being willing to pivot. However, it was through this process that we started to see our product and service improve dramatically. As we navigated these first hurdles and incorporated the lessons we learned, something remarkable started to happen. The startup, which had once been the subject of skepticism and laughter, began to gain traction. More and more, we were attracting attention and interest from potential customers and investors. It was as if the universe had finally started to notice our hard work and dedication. And while we knew that this was just the beginning of our journey, we felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. We had turned a corner and there was no looking back. The question now was, what would this new chapter bring? Would we be able to sustain our growth, or would new challenges arise to test our resolve? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: we were ready for whatever came next. I still remember the day it all started to fall into place. It was as if the entire universe had finally decided to conspire in my favor. The initial hurdles were behind me, and my $100 startup was beginning to show signs of real growth. The office, once a small, cluttered room, was now buzzing with the sound of keyboards clacking and the chatter of my new team members. We had moved to a larger space, with big windows that let in plenty of natural light and offered a stunning view of the city. The customer base was increasing exponentially, and with it, our revenue. I would often find myself sitting in my office, staring at the sales reports, wondering how we had managed to achieve such remarkable numbers. It wasn't just the money, though, it was the validation. People were finally starting to take us seriously. They were laughing less and investing more. As the team expanded, so did our operations. We were entering new markets, exploring new locations, and discovering new opportunities. I was no longer the solo founder. I was now a leader, guiding a team of talented and dedicated individuals who shared my vision. We were a family working together towards a common goal. Strategic partnerships and collaborations were the key to our rapid growth. We were forming alliances with other businesses, pooling our resources, and creating something truly remarkable. I would attend meetings and conferences, shaking hands with potential investors and partners, pitching my idea and watching as they bought into my dream. But with growth comes new challenges. Managing a larger team was not easy. There were conflicts, disagreements, and the occasional bout of frustration. I had to make tough decisions, decisions that would impact not just the business, but the people who had trusted me with their careers. I remember lying awake at night, my mind racing with questions and doubts. Was I doing the right thing? Was I ready for this? Despite the challenges, we persevered, we adapted, we innovated, and we pushed forward. The concept of scaling, partnerships, and strategic growth was no longer just a theory, it was our reality. We were living it, breathing it, and making it work. As I look back, I realized that gaining traction was not just about the business. It was about me. It was about my personal growth, my ability to lead, and my capacity to make decisions under pressure. I was no longer the same person who had started a $100 startup with a crazy idea. I was now a seasoned entrepreneur, ready to face whatever challenges came my way. And then, just as things were falling into place, new challenges emerged. The startup was growing at an unprecedented rate, and with it, the complexity of managing it all. I was faced with decisions that would make or break the business, decisions that would impact not just my future, but the future of my team. The question was I ready for what was to come? Only time would tell. I still remember the day we hit $1 million in revenue. It was like a dream come true. Just a year ago, people laughed at my $100 startup, and now we were making waves in the industry. But with growth comes new challenges, and I was about to face some of the toughest decisions of my life. As the team expanded, I had to manage a larger group of people, each with their own unique personalities and working styles. Maintaining the company culture that had driven our success so far was a daunting task. I had to make sure that our values and mission were still at the forefront of everything we did, even as we grew. At the same time, I had to make strategic decisions on where to invest our resources and how to expand our operations. It was a constant balancing act between growth and profitability. I had to weigh the risks and potential returns of every investment, every new hire, and every expansion into new markets. The pressure was mounting, and I often found myself working late into the night, poring over financial reports and projections. I had to be ruthless in my decision-making, cutting off underperforming divisions and doubling down on our strengths. Despite the challenges, I was determined to stay true to our vision and values. I surrounded myself with a talented team of leaders who shared my passion and work ethic. Together, we navigated the treacherous waters of growth, always keeping our eyes on the prize. But as we approached the $50 million mark, I knew that we had reached a critical point. We couldn't keep growing at this rate without external investment or a major strategic shift. I started to explore our options, considering partnerships, investments, and even acquisitions. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. We were on the cusp of something big, and the next phase of our growth would be the most crucial yet. I still remember the day I had to make some of the toughest decisions for my startup. We were growing at a tremendous pace, and with that growth came the need to think critically about our future. I recall sitting in our small office, surrounded by my team, and knowing that the choices we made would impact not just our company, but our lives as well. As I looked around the room, I could see the determination in everyone's eyes. We had come so far from our humble beginnings, and the thought of taking our startup to the next level was exhilarating. But with that excitement came the realization that we needed to consider external funding or investment to propel us forward. The question was, were we ready to bring in external investors? And if so, what would that mean for our company's vision and control? We spent countless hours evaluating our options, considering the pros and cons of each potential path. We met with potential investors, partners, and even acquisition targets, trying to gauge the best fit for our startup. Each meeting was a learning experience, teaching us more about the landscape of our industry and the possibilities that lay before us. As we delved deeper into our strategic planning, the concept of going global became more and more appealing. We started to explore potential new markets and locations for expansion, imagining what it would be like to take our brand to every corner of the world. The thought of diversifying our offerings and reaching new customers was thrilling, but it also came with its own set of challenges. I remember walking through the bustling streets of Tokyo, imagining our startup's logo on billboards and storefronts. I pictured our team working tirelessly in offices from New York to London, Sydney to Mumbai. The vision was grand, and it fueled our determination to make it a reality. But with international expansion comes a plethora of complexities, from navigating different regulatory environments to understanding local consumer preferences. We knew that we had to be meticulous in our planning, ensuring that every step we took was strategic and well-informed. As we weighed our options, the possibility of mergers and acquisitions also came into play. We considered what it would mean to join forces with another company, potentially gaining access to more resources and expertise. However, we were also aware of the risks, including the potential loss of our company's autonomy and culture. Throughout this process, my team and I had to remain focused on our core values and mission. We had to ask ourselves at every turn if the decisions we were making aligned with our vision for the startup. It was a daunting task, but one that we were determined to undertake with clarity and purpose. And now, as we stand at the threshold of our next major challenge, we are more prepared than ever. The question of whether to go for an initial public offering, IPO, or to be acquired looms before us, a decision that will dictate the future trajectory of our startup. It's a choice that will require careful consideration, strategic thinking, and a deep understanding of what we want our legacy to be. As we move forward, one thing is certain: the fate of our $100 startup, now a $50 million phenomenon, hangs in the balance, ready to be shaped by the decisions we make next. I still remember the day we decided to explore our exit options as if it were yesterday. The $100 startup that was once laughed at had grown into a formidable force, and we were considering taking it public through an initial public offering, IPO, or negotiating a sale with potential acquirers. Our offices, once a small, cramped space, were now bustling with activity, filled with the sound of keyboards clacking and the murmur of discussions about our future. As we delved deeper into the preparations for our IPO, the atmosphere became increasingly charged with anticipation and a hint of nervousness. Investment bankers, lawyers, and other advisors flooded our offices, each bringing their expertise to the table. They pored over our financials, scrutinized our business model, and analyzed our market position. Every detail mattered, as it would impact the valuation of our company and the attractiveness of our IPO. Meanwhile, we were also engaged in negotiations with potential acquirers, a process that was both thrilling and intimidating. These were huge companies with vast resources, and the thought of our small startup being swallowed up by one of them was daunting. Yet, it was also a testament to how far we had come. The negotiations were complex, involving intricate discussions about valuation, integration strategies, and the future role of our team within the acquiring company. The emotional implications of our exit decision weighed heavily on me. On one hand, the prospect of selling our startup for a significant amount of money was incredibly tempting. It would be a vindication of our hard work and a realization of our dreams. On the other hand, there was a sense of loss and uncertainty. What would happen to our team? Would our vision and mission be preserved, or would they be altered beyond recognition? As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, the pace of our preparations and negotiations quickened. The financial centers of the world, places like New York, London, and Hong Kong, became our stomping grounds. We attended countless meetings, made numerous presentations, and negotiated through the night. It was exhausting, but the adrenaline rush kept us going. The IPO process was a baptism by fire, teaching us about the intricacies of the financial world, the importance of transparency, and the necessity of resilience. Every step from drafting our prospectus to preparing for our roadshow was a learning experience. We were not just selling our company, we were selling a dream, a vision of what could be. Similarly, the acquisition negotiations opened our eyes to the strategies and motivations of large corporations. It was a game of chess, where every move had to be carefully considered. We learned about the importance of leverage, the value of our technology and talent, and the need to stay focused on our goals. Through it all, our team remained a rock, a testament to the bonds we had formed over the years. We were in this together, and together we would see it through. The road to our exit was long and arduous, filled with twists and turns that tested our resolve and our character. But we persevered, driven by our belief in ourselves and in our startup. And then one day it happened. The day of our exit arrived, a moment of profound change that would alter the course of our lives forever. As I stood on the threshold of this new chapter, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought us here. The laughter of skeptics still echoed in my mind, a reminder of how far we had come and what we had achieved. But as I looked to the future, I knew that this was not the end, but a beginning. A beginning of new challenges, new opportunities, and new stories waiting to be written. I still remember the day we decided to take the company public, the day our $100 startup would become a household name. The IPO process was a whirlwind of activity, with meetings, presentations, and due diligence that seemed to never end. But I was determined to see it through, to prove to all the doubters and naysayers that we had created something truly special. As we began to navigate the complex world of investment banking and securities regulation, I couldn't help but think back to the early days, when it was just me and a handful of passionate employees working tirelessly to bring our vision to life. We had come so far, and yet it felt like just the beginning. The day of the IPO finally arrived, and as I stood on the floor of the stock exchange, watching our company's stock begin to trade, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and accomplishment. We had done it. We had taken a small, scrappy startup and turned it into a global phenomenon. But as the celebrations died down and the reality of our new situation set in, I began to realize just how much our lives were about to change. The acquisition process had been intense, with multiple suitors vying for our attention, but in the end, we had chosen the partner that we believed would help us take our company to the next level. The financial outcomes were staggering. We had sold the company for $50 million, a sum that seemed almost unimaginable just a few short years ago. But as I looked around at my team, I knew that the real reward was not the money, but the impact we had made. We had created a community, a family of employees, customers, and partners who had all come together to achieve something truly remarkable. As I reflected on the journey, I couldn't help but think about the lessons we had learned along the way. We had faced countless challenges, from skeptical investors to tough competition, but through it all, we had persevered. We had stayed true to our vision, and in the end, it had paid off in a big way. But now, as I stood at the threshold of this new chapter, I couldn't help but wonder what was next. Would I start another company, or would I take a break and focus on giving back? The possibilities were endless, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly free to choose my own path. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. I was ready for whatever came next. As I sat in my new office, surrounded by the memories of my $100 startup that had blossomed into a $50 million sensation, I couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia wash over me. The walls, once witness to late-night brainstorming sessions and early morning strategy meetings, now stood as a testament to the incredible journey I had been on. But as I gazed out the window, watching the sun set over the city, I knew that this was only the beginning. The question on everyone's mind, including my own, was, what's next? The sale of my startup had given me the financial freedom to pursue anything I desired, and I found myself at a crossroads, weighing my options carefully. I had always been driven by a passion for innovation and a desire to make a meaningful impact, and I knew that my next venture had to align with these values. I started by exploring potential locations for my next project, considering everything from bustling tech hubs to quieter, more unconventional settings. Each location had its unique charm and opportunities, and I was determined to find the one that would inspire my next big idea. As I delved deeper into planning, I realized that I wasn't alone in my quest for the next great adventure. I had made countless connections throughout my journey, individuals who shared my passion for entrepreneurship and my commitment to making a difference. These new contacts and partners were not just valuable for their expertise and resources. They were also kindred spirits, eager to embark on a new challenge. Together, we brainstormed ideas, tossing around concepts that ranged from revolutionary tech startups to sustainable social enterprises. The energy was palpable, and I knew that I was on the cusp of something exciting. But alongside the thrill of the unknown was a deep-seated desire to give back. My journey had taught me the value of mentorship and the importance of philanthropy. I had been fortunate enough to have mentors who guided me through the darkest of times, and I was eager to pay it forward. I began to explore opportunities for mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs, sharing my story and the lessons I had learned along the way. There was a sense of fulfillment in giving back, a feeling that went beyond the thrill of building a successful business. It was about leaving a legacy, about making a mark that would outlast me. As I navigated this new phase of my life, I found myself reflecting on what success truly meant. Was it the money, the accolades, or something deeper? My $100 startup had brought me wealth and recognition, but it was the journey, the people I met, and the challenges I overcame that had given me a sense of purpose. I realized that success is not a destination. It's a continuous journey of growth, learning, and giving back. The sale of my startup was not an end. It was a new beginning, a chance to redefine what success meant to me and to pursue it with renewed vigor. Looking back, I am reminded of the laughter, the skepticism, and the doubt that surrounded my $100 startup in its early days. But I also remember the hard work, the resilience, and the innovation that turned it into a $50 million reality. My story is a testament to the power of believing in oneself, even when the world doesn't. And as I embark on this next chapter, I hope that it serves as a beacon of inspiration for aspiring entrepreneurs everywhere. A reminder that with dedication, passion, and a willingness to take risks, anything is possible. The future is uncertain, but one thing is clear. It's full of possibilities, and I'm ready to embrace them head-on.